I'd buy that for $1. One of the best quotes ever. Ever. Anyway, hey there guys, what's up? It's all about Mike 18 here with another movie review, another one of my old movie reviews. Guys, I'm continuing doing this series that I absolutely love doing. I think I've been doing a lot more than I did last year, as a matter of fact. I fell behind last year. I want to give you guys a lot. And I've been watching a lot of movies on my own in general lately. I said this when I reviewed this movie on Letterboxd. I said, wow, I guess I'm really into 80s action movies. I've been watching a lot of them recently. And the movie, the 80s action movie, of course, that I'm going to be reviewing in this video is the original RoboCop. That's right, guys. I finally watched the original 1987 RoboCop. Yes, in case any of you didn't know, all of these movies that I do old movie reviews for, I've already seen. So in case you guys aren't wondering, well, why haven't I seen a review for Forrest Gump or for Saving Private Ryan or something like that? I've seen those movies. So if I haven't reviewed it, I've seen it, or there's a chance I haven't seen it. So I haven't seen the 1987 RoboCop. As a matter of fact, I watched the 2014 reboot/remake before I had even seen this one, so I know that's pitiful in its own right. But RoboCop, the original, was released in 1987. It is from director Paul Verhoeven. Paul Verhoeven. That's how I'm going to say it. I know, I'm probably saying it wrong. I'm sorry. But, yeah, so when RoboCop came out, it was in the 80s, probably, arguably, as many people would feel, the best decade for action movies. Everybody loved the 80s in regards to action movies. And the other action movie, 80s action movie that I just watched before RoboCop was The Terminator. I had just watched The Terminator, and then a day later I watched RoboCop. I'm on an 80s action movie kick, apparently, guys. So, getting into the story behind RoboCop, kicking off this old movie review, I believe the film is set somewhere in the future, even though it doesn't specify it specifically. But crime is severely on the rise in the city of Detroit. It is becoming too much for even the police force to even handle. You know, cops are just, you know, complaining about, you know, all of the crime that they have to deal with. Try living in 2015 nowadays. It's just becoming just basically too much to handle. And there is a very wealthy corporation that is on the rise as well by the name of OCP in this movie. And they have a proposition to basically revamp the police force. They have a certain idea in mind. There's one executive in particular who has a certain idea in mind to basically fix the police force and put an end to this wave, these high levels of crime, which is starting to take a toll on the police officers, especially when they're losing their own brothers and sisters in the force. So we have our main character in this movie. His name is Police Officer Alex Murphy. He is a cop, and I think he's been a cop for a while. He just transfers over to a new division in Detroit, and when he responds to a call along with his partner, played by Nancy Allen in the film, Alex Murphy in this movie is played by Peter Weller. When he responds to this call, he is ruthlessly killed and gunned down by a horrible gang led by Kurtwood Smith, the actor, Kurtwood Smith. And this is OCP's chance. They decide to take the body of Alex Murphy and turn him into the cyborg known as RoboCop. That is right. That's the plan of OCP. They have this idea in mind to put a man, or in this case a dead man, inside a robotic suit, or, you know, to make him a cyborg so he can therefore enforce the laws and stop the spread of crime. And that is the plan of OCP, and they successfully do that, and Alex Murphy becomes RoboCop. That's right, guys. So that's basically the whole plot synopsis of the movie RoboCop. And again, I was looking forward to this movie. I bought the Blu-ray a while ago, and I was looking forward to going into it, especially because of how negatively I felt about the 2014 RoboCop remake. I did not like that movie. I thought it was very dull. I thought it was very unexciting. And quite frankly, I am very ashamed of myself that I saw that movie before I watched the original RoboCop. That being said, I really, really enjoyed the original 1987 RoboCop, and again, I will say this yet again, I am only that much ashamed of myself that I did not get to see this movie before I had to watch the terrible remake. Please don't watch that movie. Please watch this movie if you have to pick one of the two. Obviously, pick the good one, not the mediocre, dull one. 2014 RoboCop. But 1987 RoboCop is just a perfect 80s action movie. It's what you would expect from an 80s action movie in the 80s. It's got people wearing 80s clothes. It's got people with there are memorable lines and memorable catchphrases in this movie. There are awesome gunfights and action scenes. And, you know, there are practical effects that are used that actually pretty much hold up to this day. And things that really worked for me in this movie in regards to the script and the overall plot. And it's just got that, you know, gritty, hardcore action movie vibe with just the right amount of levels of violence that you'd expect from an R-rated action movie. You know, there's blood, there's gore, and that's all that I think we deserve as action movie fans. And RoboCop delivers on all of those levels, in my opinion. On action, in blood and gore, on the grittiness and the hardcore style of this movie. In terms of a very compelling story with by far one of the most badass concepts in film, and probably one of the most badass concepts in film history. A dead man gets put into a robotic suit, becomes a cyborg, known as RoboCop, and has to enforce the law. And also goes on a hunt for revenge of the ruthless gang members that murdered him. How much more badass of a plot can you expect to get? Alright, that is just as good of a plot as you are going to get for any type of, you know, hardcore action movie. And you absolutely get that with RoboCop. But I'm going to talk to you guys about one thing that absolutely worked with this movie. Something I wasn't expecting. I went to this movie and be like, yeah, it's going to be a fun, exciting action movie. And it was all of those things and more. But what really worked for me with RoboCop were the themes that were very... what's the word? Accurately, I guess, portrayed throughout the screenplay. There were a lot of them. I mean, you could honestly just go into this movie, turn your brain off and be like, oh, it's a guy in a cyborg suit, killing people, gunning them down. This is so freaking awesome. But you can actually really analyze what you're watching, and as you're doing that, you see what the filmmakers were really trying to tell a story about. And I love whenever filmmakers can take a movie and tell, you know, have a certain view or standpoint on society and, you know, convey that viewpoint throughout the film that they've made. Even though it's just straight up action movie, they're able to successfully do that in this film. There are several relevant and important themes that I think even carry over to society today. And those themes are but are not limited to the following. Multi-corporate greed for power and ka-ching money. Okay, that is so prevalent in this movie, and it's so prevalent in other movies nowadays, and it's so exciting to see that RoboCop was probably one of the first movies that said, yeah, listen, big corporations, they're evil, they're bad, all they want to have is power, they want to be in control of the situation, and they will literally do anything to take over. And that is really, really strong. That theme is very, very strong in this movie, because once RoboCop gets onto the streets and starts, you know, taking over the jobs of the police officers, you see members of this corporation taking over the police office, monitoring RoboCop's activities and everything. And all the police officers are just like, okay, this is our place. What the hell are you guys doing here? But they're all like, oh, RoboCop's a badass anyway. So, you know, this multi-corporation OCP, they did do something right. They made a badass cyborg who can, you know, do much of a better job of, you know, protecting and serving as opposed to the actual police officers. But the corporation and the members within it are still greedy. They still want their own personal ideas recognized, and all they care about is making tons of money and being in power of the situation. And it has to stop, guys. Corporations are evil. Don't trust them. And the movie also has very solid themes in relation to human nature and human conscience. And that's what I thought really worked for me in this movie. Because within this suit, under this suit of armor, this cyborg is really Alex Murphy, and he had a past life. He had people he knew and loved, and as he is arresting people, he goes on the rampage for revenge, to kill or arrest, I should say, but kill if he needs to, the people that put him in this suit, basically, or were responsible for his death. And it's just the classic way any human would respond to a situation like this. You take something from a person, in this case their life, they come back in the form of RoboCop, they are going to go after you. Okay, that's just facts. And it also says a lot about the man or the machine, human conscience, and you know, how it can have a big effect, I should say, on certain people. And all of those themes worked very, very well for me with RoboCop, and that is something to definitely take away from with this film. Apart from all the big action spectacle and all the badass scenes you get as you're watching this movie, yes, all of that is awesome. There's so much, not going to say eye candy, but there's so much, there's a very, you know, high, strong visual excitement as you're watching this movie. I love not only did I enjoy the style of which this movie was shot, and the 80s action style, but the special effects and the practical effects, I will admit, aren't over the top, just mind blowing, but they're pretty damn good for a movie in the 80s. I thought that the practical effects for the obviously they built some sort of machine for the ED-209 character in the film. Obviously that's not CGI, because this is a film that was, released before CGI, was advanced, I should say. And there are moments where you could tell the special effects do feel a little bit outdated, but there are moments where I bought into them and I felt that they kind of worked for this movie. But the practical effects really worked for me overall. And RoboCop's costume design is badass, guys. That's all I gotta say. Now, I'm gonna get into other things that I enjoyed about the movie, and get into a couple of flaws I did have with this movie, because I do feel RoboCop is not a flawless film, although I really enjoyed its script and its action sequences that I thought were very well done, well filmed, well shot, well choreographed. In the end, I'm going to give RoboCop a very solid grade of a 9 out of 10 or an A-. I think there is a ton of fun to be had with this movie, and the character of RoboCop is one of the coolest weapons, I'd say, in movie history, for sure. But getting into the things, again, and I'm going to be restating some of these because I've already mentioned them before, the things that really worked for this movie, I thought the performances were very, very well done. Peter Weller, namely, when we see him as Alex Murphy, you're like, okay, he's a, average cop, he's, supports the cops and supports his side and wants to take care of all the crime out there, okay? It's Alex Murphy. He's awesome. When he becomes the cyborg RoboCop, it's even more exciting to see his, even though we can hardly see his face throughout the entire duration of the film, the way he has become just robotic and, like a cyborg, it's great. It's pretty damn awesome. I mean, he definitely transforms himself for this role, and not only plays the character of Alex Murphy, but does an incredible job playing the character of RoboCop. And Nancy Allen was also in the film, did a very good job. And the main leader of the gang in this film, Kurtwood Smith, is the actor. He plays Red in That 70s Show. I did not see that coming at all. To see Kurtwood Smith in this movie, oh my god, perfect casting there. Great job in this movie. He was so good, funny, just, I love Kurtwood Smith. So good. I think he said ass at one point in this film, and I had to literally pause the movie and laugh because I could not help but see him as Red from That 70s Show. You can't help it, guys. Like I said, the script and the story were very well done, filled with a lot of layers, and you know, a lot of very symbolic themes and a lot of messages that the filmmakers were trying to convey. And I really liked that about the screenplay in this movie. I thought it really, really worked for me. And it has so many memorable lines and quotes, namely, like I said in my intro, I'd buy that for $1, dead or alive, you're coming with me. So many great lines in this movie, such a quotable movie, just like The Terminator, which I had just watched, as I told you guys. The costume design of RoboCop is by far superior to the 2014 remake. Even though that costume is pretty badass, and that like motor pod that he rides in that movie, no, I'm not here to talk about that dull, boring movie. This costume is still superior. I can imagine how many people were blown away when RoboCop in the movie pulls out his gun, which is attached to his hip. It literally just comes out of his hip, and then it like raises up, and then he just takes the gun out, and that's where he stores it. That is so freaking cool. I love that. The costume design is awesome. It holds up to this day, in my opinion. And I thought the practical effects were really very well done on the ED-209. I thought that really worked for me. The action scenes, as I said, were very well shot. The actors knew what they were doing. Just the gunfights were so awesome and brutal and gory, and I love that for an R-rated action movie. There's some great explosions. There are two awesome, that's right, count them, two awesome warehouse scenes. One in a somewhat abandoned warehouse, and another in a warehouse with a lot of people and a lot of cocaine. That's all I'm going to say. And it's just so freaking awesome to see RoboCop just pick these people apart. I thought the film was very well paced. The editing was great. You definitely feel that the film is very high octane and very thrilling as you're watching it. You cannot wait to see who RoboCop is going to kill next, what he's going to kill next, the weapons, not only RoboCop himself, but the other weapons in this movie. There's some bazookas here or there, which cause for some fun. RoboCop is overall just a very fun and exciting 80s action movie, and that's why I enjoyed it as much as I did and gave it a 9 out of 10. Getting into flaws, however, I did have with the movie. One plot element that just did not work for me in this movie was the whole family storyline of Alex Murphy. The fact that the character of Alex Murphy, has a wife and son in this movie mean absolutely nothing. And I know in the 2014 remake, they were in the movie a lot more. That wife and son are in flashbacks of this movie for 2 scenes. So I'm going to give a little bit of credit to that movie for at least having those characters in the movie more, the 2014 remake, even though the character development was very, very poor and I just didn't buy into any of it. In my opinion, what they needed for this movie in order to make us feel for Alex Murphy more so as a human was to have more scenes of the wife and kid. Maybe have some backstory on how him and his wife met. Have a sweet little story like, oh, I love my wife, I love my son. They were just in 2 flashbacks, and that whole plot point had really no purpose whatsoever in this movie. It could have been completely taken out, in my opinion. And I get it makes the character of Alex Murphy feel bad as he's under this armor, this RoboCop armor, but I just felt that it should have been a lot stronger in the movie. It just felt very weak. I feel both RoboCop films actually did not do a good job of portraying the family that Alex Murphy had. I just didn't buy into it. I wanted to feel something from that scenes, and I didn't, because it felt like they were honestly just kind of thrown into the film, that whole plot point, and it was like they filmed that afterwards or something. I don't know. I just felt that it should have been a lot stronger, and it could have been a very big driving force for the character of RoboCop in this movie, but it just wasn't. And of course, that last special effects shot in the final act of this movie, just, without spoiling anything, someone falls. It did not work for me. It just looked bad, okay? It doesn't hold up. That's all I'm gonna say. But I love the ending in this movie. The ending of this movie, forgot to mention earlier, so badass. I love the ending in this movie so much. It is just so unexpected, yet so perfect at the same time. You're just like, you couldn't help but cheer as you watch the last act of this movie. It's so awesome. Definitely recommend RoboCop, guys. Again, gonna give it a 9 out of 10 or an A-. It's RoboCop. It's 87 RoboCop. Watch it, check it out if you've never seen it. Don't watch the 2014 remake. It's nowhere near as good or as exciting or fun as this RoboCop is. And those are my thoughts on the original 1987 RoboCop. With that said, guys, I'd like to thank you so much for watching my old movie review. Give me your thoughts on RoboCop down below, and stay tuned for some of my next videos. And that's all I have to say. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Bye.